Old Testament text. So the text that typically the people, for example, in the time of the King James translation, would use a text that is known as the Masoretic text. And that is a unique sect within Judaism that preserved the Hebrew Old Testament that had a very unique way of keeping track of the texts. They had a complete, from Genesis to Malachi, copy of Scripture. But the Essenes are the people who were responsible for the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they're a completely different sect of Judaism that didn't have any overlap with the Masoretes. And the Dead Sea Scrolls were about 1,000 years, if not more, earlier in date than the Masoretic text. But here's a really cool thing, though. They are about 99.5% the same. So and the differences are somewhat in like a versus the, or other sort of small scribal errors, so to speak. But the theology remains largely, if not wholly, unchanged, at least from the Old Testament perspective. And it showed the great care. So the Masoretes, just for example, added vowel pointings, which Hebrew, if you look at the most ancient scrolls of Hebrew, there's no vowels on there. And they knew the language and how to fill the vowels in to speak it. And we could do the same with English. I could write a sentence on the board without vowels, and you'll be able to read it, right? Because your brain can fill in the gaps. This happens with Hebrew. But the Masoretes put in the vowel pointing so that it could be read clearly and understood clearly in worship in the synagogue. But the other thing they did is to ensure accuracy in the scribal tradition. They counted each letter, each sentence, each page, each book, and then the entirety of the Old Testament. And so there is a unique pointing for the middle letter, the middle word, the middle sentence, and the middle book of the Masoretes, essentially. So if they would go through and if they would see that the copy didn't match up with the pointing, they would completely destroy the flawed copy and start from scratch. And so they had this unique counting, again, counting each individual letter to make sure everything was in its proper place. So that's the care that the Masoretes had with the Hebrew scriptures. The Essenes, again, were a completely different branch in terms of their textual tradition, but have tremendous overlap. That being said, there are certain things that in the Masoretic text, especially at the time of the translation of the King James, Hebrew scholarship was in its infancy. So there's not a lot of Christians who were very fluent in Hebrew. And a lot of times they would work with the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew text, rather than the Hebrew text itself, especially in the early translations of Scripture. So one of the things that made Martin Luther unique was his command, basic by today's standards, but very advanced at his time, knowledge of Hebrew, and his work with the Hebrew. And there were some other scholars who worked more with Hebrew than strictly with just the Greek. And so when we look at the Hebrew, the I am who I am becomes much more prominent than the I am that I am, and is more accurately and consistently reflecting not just Exodus 3, but the rest of the Old Testament and the usage of Yahweh going forward from there. So that's the big difference, both in terms of translation, but also the history and the text that the King James is drawing from versus the text that the ESV and the method by which the ESV is translated. Yeah?
Who made this movie? Producer, director?
DreamWorks, I think Steven Spielberg was, where did I put mine?
It was Katzenberger and Spielberg.
Well, let's see, does it tell us back? So, yeah, Jeffrey Katzenberg was a producer. So, basically it's a collection of the team from DreamWorks with a little bit of input from Steven Spielberg. And they have a little bit of a note at the very end of the movie that talks about how they worked with a whole bunch of scholars and people from a variety of different faith traditions to produce this. So they're trying to make a middle of the road but fairly faithful adaptation of the Exodus story.
There's some credibility to the movie.
Yeah, and like I said, if you, for the most part, it went pretty much word for word in a lot of respects from the movie scene to Exodus 3. But there were a couple of key changes, at least from my perspective, that is worth bringing out in our discussion. And again, if you're watching the movie and only loosely reading the text, and sort of your formation of the Exodus story is either from something like the Ten Commandments or the Prince of Egypt, you might miss these details that become incredibly important later on. And unfortunately, in our world, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, a lot of times how we know something is not influenced just by, for example, the book. Like, some people know Lord of the Rings only by the movie, which is fine for the most part, but the books, you know, are way richer in terms of the detail.
They're always better.
Care. True, there's one exception, a couple of exceptions, we could talk about that later though. That being said, that's why I thought it was a good exercise for us to, again, see one of the most recent and faithful adaptations versus the biblical story. But we'll continue to have the text open as we follow Moses in his journey in the movie.
That is why I must do the task that God has given.
I'm coming with you.
Moses, is it really? Moses! Ramesses! Look at you! But I didn't use the word as you dressed that. Oh, Ramesses, it's so good to see you.
Excuse me, Your Majesty. We are compelled to remind you that this man committed a serious crime against the gods. We are loath to bring it up, mind you, yet the law clearly states the punishment for such a crime.
Death!
We hesitate to say.
Be still. Terror speaks. I am the morning and the evening star. Ramesses, it shall be as I say. I pardon forever all crimes of which he stands accused, and will have it known that he is our brother Moses, the Prince of Egypt.
Ramesses, in my heart you are my brother. But things cannot be as they were.
I see no reason why not.
You know I am a Hebrew. The God of the Hebrews came to me. Father, he commands that you let his people go.
Commands.
Behold, the power of God.
Oh, impressive. Very well, Moses. I'll play along. Hotep, hoy, give this snake charmer our answer.
By the power of God.
Sobek, Sakbek, Sokar, Salkat, Reshpu, Wat, Anubis, Seshu, Neshach, Hemsut, Tefut, Hep, Maftet, Ra, Nukata, Hemsut, Tefut, Sokar, Salkat, Seshu, Reshpu, Sobek, Wat, Heki, Maftet, Nefti, Nashbek, Ra.
So you think you've got friends in high places with the power to put us on the run. Well, forgive us these smiles on our faces. You know what power is when we are done, son. You're playing with the big boys now. Playing with the big boys now. That's pretty. Every spell and gesture tells you who's the best. You're playing with the big boys now. You're playing with the big boys now. You're playing with the big boys now. Stop this foolish mission. What's a true magician? Give an exhibition how. Pick up your silly twin boy. You're playing with the big boys now. By the might of Horus, you will kneel before us, kneel to us and doors. You put up a front, you put up a fight, and just to show we feel no spite, you can block. But first boy, it's time to bow. For it's your way you'll give, when you're playing with the big boy. Playing with the big boy, playing with the big boy, playing with the
I know you. What's this really about?
Ramesses, look. What do you see?
A greater Egypt than that of my father.
That is not what I see.
Moses, I cannot change what you see. I have to maintain the ancient traditions. I bear the weight of my father.
Do you still not understand what sin was? He was a great leader. His hand bore the blood of thousands of children, slaves, my people. And I can no longer hide in the desert while they suffer. At your hands. So, you have a little freedom. I'm sorry. I had hoped.
I do not know this God. Neither will I let your people go.
Ramesses, please, you must
I will not be the weak link. Tell your people, as of today, their workload has been doubled, thanks to your God. Or is it thanks to you?
Moses!
So, Moses, how does it feel when you get struck to the ground? I can cause you more pain. I'm just trying to do as God told me.
God? When did God start caring about any of us? In fact, Moses, when did you start caring about slaves? Was it when you found out that you were one of us?
Don't listen to him.
That's right. I did not see because I did not wish to see.
You see, because you didn't wish to see. Ah, that makes everything fine then, doesn't it?
Aaron, shame yourself.
Let's turn to the biblical text. Let's first turn to Exodus chapter 4. We have a couple of significant deviations from the biblical story here. So we're going to start 4 verse 1. I'll go ahead and read that. Then Moses answered, behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they will say, the Lord did not appear to you. The Lord said to him, what is it in your hand? And he said, a staff. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses ran from it. But the Lord said to Moses, put your hand out and catch it by the tail. So that he put his hand and caught it, and it became a staff in his hand. That they may believe the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has appeared to you. Again, the Lord said to him, put your hand inside your cloak. When he put his hand inside his cloak, when he took it out, it was leprous like snow. Then God said, put your hand back inside your cloak. So he put his hand back inside, and when he took it out, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. They will not believe you or listen to the first sign, they may believe the latter sign. If they will not believe even these 2 signs or listen to your voice, you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it on the ground, and the water that you shall take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. But Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken of your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. Then the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes him mute, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall speak. But he said, O Lord, please send someone else. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. You shall speak to him, and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you both what to do. He shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as God to him. And take in your hand the staff which with you will do the sign. So, we see that Aaron comes into the text much earlier than how the movie portrays. And in fact, Aaron is actually pretty happy to see the Lord. And then the other thing that is a significant difference is in chapter 7. Let's go to chapter 7. So Aaron is there before they go to Pharaoh, as in the movie. Aaron is happy to see Moses, not upset with him and mocking him and everything like that. But as we see, Moses is the one who throws down his staff in the movie. And there are a couple of things that the movie got right, but Moses is the one who throws down the staff. Well, here, let's look at the text and see what happens there. So 7 verse 8. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, When Pharaoh says to you, Prove yourselves by working a miracle, then you shall say to Aaron, Take your staff and cast it down before Pharaoh, that it may become a serpent. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did as the Lord had commanded. Aaron cast down his serpent before Pharaoh and his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Moses, some of the wise men and the sorcerers, and they, the magicians of Egypt, also did the same by their secret arts. For each man cast down his staff, and they became serpents. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Still Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them, as the Lord had said. So in the movie, it's Moses' staff that gets cast down. He's not even with Aaron yet. In the biblical text, Aaron is with them, doing exactly as the Lord had commanded, being Moses' mouthpiece. The movie did get right, though, and I hope you caught that the snake that was as a result of Moses' staff did consume the 2 snakes of the court magicians for Pharaoh. So the implication is still there in terms of the power of God is greater than the power of Egypt, than the gods of Egypt and of Pharaoh. But again, we're missing some significant parts of the story where, again, Aaron is already with Moses. Aaron was glad to see Moses. And Moses is a little more reluctant in the biblical text than he is in the movie here. The other big change, and this is something that we'll probably talk about in more depth and detail next week as we have an interlude in looking at the chronology of the Exodus and a reminder of the pharaohs that we're talking about. But there is no indication when Aaron and Moses returned to Pharaoh that there is this deep, abiding personal relationship like there is in the text. And nowhere in the Exodus does it ever say Moses and Pharaoh were brothers. Now, they were in the same household, but again, in the Prince of Egypt, the movie here, who finds Moses and brings him into the court? In the movie, it's Pharaoh's wife. Or, well, soon to be Pharaoh's wife. It's Ramses' wife. No, it is Pharaoh's wife. Sorry, I apologize. And she raised him up to be Ramses' brother. In the biblical text, it was Pharaoh's daughter, and Moses was raised as sort of a generic member of the court. And we have to also remember, Pharaoh probably had multiple wives and lots and lots and lots of children. So it would not be uncommon for it to not just be, well, just for the sake of movies perspective, it's not just Moses and Ramses, it's Moses, Pharaoh's son, and then a whole bunch of other kids that are a part of that household. And again, the other thing that we know is who raised Moses, at least from an earlier age. His mother, yeah. So the women of Pharaoh's court saw how God had blessed the midwives, because the midwives were faithfully doing their job and doing their job by being slow. Oh, sorry, girl, we can't get to the Hebrew women in time to carry out the will. By the time we get there, they've already given birth. So they're slowing down their work to preserve as many Hebrew lives as possible. The Lord sees this and blesses them, and there was much faith in the midwives of Egypt. So they bring in one of these midwives to help with the raising of Moses, and it turns out to be Moses' mother. So a lot of deviations from that perspective, from a relationship standpoint, but again, if we think about the movie as not just an exercise in adapting the biblical story, telling it faithfully, but also telling a good Hollywood story, there's a lot of dramatic tension then. If you then have Moses and Ramses be brothers, you have the close relationship growing up, the repairing of that relationship when Moses initially returns alone, and then the tearing apart of that relationship again. For dramatic tension and scriptwriting purposes, that makes a lot more sense on screen, but from the biblical perspective, there's a lot of deviations from both the chronology, who's with Moses when, and who does the work according to the will of the Lord. Questions? Yeah.
So I was a little bit of, I mean, it's kind of the same general area, but a little bit of a rewind. So I was telling you earlier this week, The Life of Moses by St. Gregory of Nyssa, and it's like, so the bush, it's a very interesting incident because St. Gregory is very insistent that this bush is a bramble bush. It's a thorn bush, and thorns are given as a consequence of the fall. And as Moses is approaching this bush, the text says that it's not consumed. And so the bush contains the glory of God, and Moses is in the presence of God, and yet he's not consumed. I mean, it's a truly remarkable thing, and it's once again almost a hearkening back to the garden again, the Garden of Eden, right? Eden is said to have been a mountain, garden, temple, right? Heaven and earth are together, there's no separation, and then Sinai comes along, and once again on a mountain, man, I guess God reveals himself to man in a way that he's forgotten, right? Moses is like, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
and so, and then when he asks him to remove the sandals, it's like, it's almost as if with the removal of the shoes, as his feet are touching the earth again, there's that reminder, from dust you are, to dust you shall return, right? So it's a huge, humbling, very act of humility that Moses is taking in the presence of God. And it's, it's almost like a removal of the skins, right? Because Adam and Eve were naked, and they didn't know that.
Yeah, that they had this.
They didn't know, yeah, and then God gives them the skins.
Does he also make the connection, it's been a little while, but does he make the connection too between the bramble bush and the crown of thorns
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Um,
And so I guess that's a remarkable thing, at least from what I can see in the biblical text, is there's really not an incident before this where something has the glory of God within it. And
Right,
yet,
after the fall.
Right, yeah, after the fall, and yet it's not consumed.
Yeah.
So it's a really miraculous section of
And
the
then,
Bible, really.
and then it continues on with the theophanies through the Exodus.
Yes, yeah, Mary,
Yeah.
of course, Mary containing Christ, the Ark of the Covenant, the tabernacle, and all that's coming along, and it's like, and yet they're not consumed.
Mhm.
So, yeah, a lot of parallels there.
Oh, yeah. And that's where, if you read the Gospel of John, I always tell people the best commentary on the Gospel of John is the book of Exodus. In terms of really understanding what Jesus does, why he says what he says, and what he's ultimately looking towards and fulfilling. And by extension, the best commentary on the book of Exodus is the Gospel of John. Yeah.
A little comment about the little ditty about you playing with the big boys now. Very ironic and very irreverent that they are saying that, because it's true.
Yeah.
Moses has been in the presence of the big boy.
Yeah.
God's presence. And so, I don't think maybe it was intentional, I don't know, but I almost get goosebumps that they're saying what has happened. Okay, in some irreverent and ironic words that
Oh, yeah.
you've been dispatched.
Yeah, and it's something that actually comes up in other instances, for example, with Elijah and the prophets of Baal, too. Sennacherib, as he is cursing Yahweh and making fun of the power of the Lord as his army surrounds the gates of Jerusalem prior to his entire army being struck down in one night by the angel of the Lord. One other thing, going back to the burning bush thing that I did wanted to bring up, but I forgot. So Moses has this questioning, and actually, if we kind of really listen and read through it, they actually borrow a little bit from the book of Job. So Moses said, well, how can I be confident? And then, I am basically in the movie here. God talks about how He works in creation, and He was there at the formation of different things. But that's actually the interaction that God has with Job when God tells Job, "Get ready, dress for action like a man." And then He goes, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Have you visited the depths of the sea? Have you seen the morning stars sound together and sing for joy?" So I think they pulled a little bit actually from the book of Job, just to highlight the difference in that spot between God as creator and Moses as created creature. So I wanted to point that out, but that was something that I thought that was pretty interesting, and it makes some sense. Any other questions or comments on anything? Yeah.
We can understand that Moses' staff turned into a snake because of the power of God. How did the court musician staffs turn into snakes?
Well,
Who did that?
I think that one of the things that the movie does pretty well that highly talented, if you watch this and if you watch, as we watch, they try to mimic the different parts of the plague, they use sleight of hand as a way to do that. And I want to say also, and I'm no herpetologist, but I think there are some snakes that actually, when threatened, sort of play dead and stiffen up as well. So it's very possible that they were able to, or already had snakes that in some ways that were already dead and stiff like a staff, and use that as sort of the sleight of hand. But the movie actually portrays it, and I think a lot of the biblical and extra biblical tradition for both Judaism and Christianity